Okay, we are live. So welcome everybody, welcome students, welcome all attendees to the Lambton College in Toronto orientation meet and greet. Today's day 4 for our summer students. We have a lot of wonderful presenters here today, and it's going to be a pretty information-packed session. So my advice to anybody watching, if you are on your laptop or if you have your phone nearby, could be a great one to take a few screenshots of any information that you think is super valuable. Maybe also a good one where you might want to follow up and watch the recording later. But we're so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. We appreciate you being here with us. So today's lineup of speakers, I'll introduce myself. I'm Meg Desmond. I'm the Academic Quality Coordinator here at the college, and I'm also one of the people helping to manage orientation this week. So I'll just be in the background queuing up the slides and also introducing our other speakers. Then we have Jaya Surendran from Housing and Accommodation and Meraz Ahangar from also Housing and Accommodation. They're going to be leading off the presentation today, giving you guys lots of valuable information. I know many of you might not yet be in Canada, but soon you're maybe going to be looking towards where to live and trying to figure out the process of that. So they're going to give you a lot of really valuable information to keep in mind. Then we're going to have Melissa Harris. Melissa is our immigration consultant here at the college. She's going to talk to you about all things immigration, including your PGWP, study permits, getting on the path to permanent residency, visas, all those good things. Then we have Peter Tells Langdon from Co-op, and a lot of you are here with the hope of maybe getting a job and staying in Canada permanently. And the best way to make that happen is by really putting all your effort into getting the best co-op possible. So Peter is going to be leading us off, giving you tons of valuable information about the co-op work term. And then finally, I'm going to close things off talking about Canadian culture. So that's the lineup for today. Just a little reminder before we get started about this week's schedule. So if you were with us Monday to Wednesday, you've already seen these sessions. You don't need to worry too much about it. But again, today we have housing and accommodation, we have immigration, co-op, and Canadian culture. And on Friday, tomorrow, just keep in mind, we have keeping students safe, we have academic integrity, student success, travel to Canada, and then a game. And the game is going to be fun. It's your chance, if you've been paying attention this week, to review all the information, get a chance to win some prizes here. Everybody loves a fun little game. And then after that, we will have our APA workshop with Mark Gonzalez. So keep these things in mind going forward. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass things on to Meraz and to Jaya to talk about housing and accommodation.
Thank you, Meg. You hear me?
You're welcome. Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you, Meg, and good morning and welcome all. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to get us introduced to all of you. My name is Jaya Surendran. Along with me is my colleague Mehraz Alangar. We both are settlement workers at North York Community House. And today we are going to share information on off-campus housing accommodation with you all. So you're in a new country, you wanted to get to know how things work here in Toronto. So a little bit of information. The next slide, let me quickly share a few highlights of our organization, which is North York Community House. So North York Community House is a non-profit organization that serves over 20,000 residents in northwest of Toronto every year. So we are located at North York. Lambton is also comes under North York. We provide mobile settlement services in community centers, schools, post-secondary institutions such as yours, City of Toronto facilities, public libraries, and in community spaces. We do offer information and orientation and referrals on topics such as immigration, citizenship, health and wellness, language classes, finances. We have a huge financial literacy team. If you're interested in volunteering, we have volunteering, recreational, and other personal and professional development staff through our employment program. So most of our delivery methods are one-on-one sessions and group workshops. But due to the pandemic, we became hybrid and most of our delivery method becomes online. But we were really doing very successfully, a lot of large response during our virtual thing. So if you wanted to know a little more about North York Community House, here is our website, www.nych.ca, to find more information at your leisure time. And little more, which connected us with Lambton College, is through the International Student Connect program. So International Student Connect was created to provide settlement support to you and your family. This project's goal is to help you to integrate successfully if you decide to remain in Ontario after completing your studies. So International Student is a partnership between colleges, universities, and service delivery agencies. This project is funded by Ontario Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration. So I hope your aim is to stay here. So don't worry, we are non-profit organization. We don't charge any services. So feel free to get connected. The main aim is to get as much as resources that you get to know in the new country. Let me go to the agenda now. So our agenda today will cover living off campus and what are the housing accommodations in Toronto, rights and responsibilities as a tenant, and what are the available resources for you to consider. We added this, on campus versus on off campus slide because some colleges and universities have on-campus accommodation. However, Lambton does not have this facility. Therefore, we are more focusing on off-campus choices. Meg, am I okay? Going?
Yep, you're doing great.
Yes. So what are some benefits of living off campus? Let's see a few of the benefits. It can be cheaper than living inside university housing or college housing. More independence, you have more independence, freedom, privacy. You have your own space when you come from school, which is a nice quiet thing, that you have that private space. You also get an opportunity to network with others other than students. Maybe there's neighbors, so there is a possibility of networking. Quieter and have few distractions when closer to the school, or inside the school. There is more distractions. Here, when you go away, there's fewer distraction. So again, as I mentioned, on campus is not available at Lambton College. So let me go to the next slide. So okay, you are here and you decided you are here to study, and now you know the advantages of living there, and let's see what's next. You choose your college and get familiarized with your college. You get to know the area and decide where to live. So you really need to decide where to live. Decide how much you can afford, because choosing a house is very personal. Choosing a living accommodation is very personal. You need to decide how much you can afford. Find out what the rent includes, because it's very tricky. If things like utilities and other things it's not mentioned, you need to know find out what rent includes. Where you try to use various research methods to find your new home. There are different tools, research methods to find your new home. We always recommend to inspect an apartment before committing, because it might look very nice, very beautiful picture in Kijiji or whatever the searching tool that you look. But when you go in person, things will be totally different. So we always recommend you to inspect an apartment or your living space before you're committing. After you commit, it's very hard to break the lease agreement. So it's always inspect an apartment before you're committing. The next main thing is know your rights and responsibilities as a tenant. It's very important to know your rights and responsibilities as a tenant. You don't want to get into any legal consequences, but not because you're not obeying the rules. Then, so here in Toronto, you will hear these terms with when you're looking for rental accommodations. So they are called rooms in houses. There will be a bigger house, but there will be rooms in that houses that you can rent. Room and board, shared accommodation. There is a bachelor room. There is also high-rise apartment. You can share an apartment with a roommate. So those are some of the types of the rental accommodations. So when you choose, keep a few challenges in mind and plan ahead. These are very minor issues, but you need to get organized and get well informed. Like commuting and transportation. Say, for example, closer to certain area, the rent will be high, but then you chose little further because it's cheaper, but then you need to consider things in mind that commuting, transportation. Sometimes Toronto, traffic-wise, it really get hectic during the traffic time, and winter times. Also, you need to consider all those timing in terms of commuting and transportation facilities. Think about bill payment. You need to get organized with bill payment. Okay, as a student, you have very restriction. Your money goes to most for the tuition fees. So in terms of the bill payment, you need to get a little more organized. You need to see what are the additional costs that are apart from living, apart from the rental cost and things. When you lived little further, you also need to connect and keep in touch with school announcements in that way, whether it's through your account or through your friends. Make sure you don't miss any school announcement. So from here, I'm going to pass it to my colleague Mehraz, who is going to share more important things to remember during this, when you're trying to find your new place. Mehraz, the floor is for you. Please take it over from here.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jaya, and hello everyone, and welcome to the session today. I am going to continue next steps after finding housing and where to live. The next step is more like agreements and paperwork. So there are different paperwork. First of all, after choosing the place, talk with the landlord, and you accept when you would like to continue for the next step, then the landlord may send you a form, which is very simple before the agreement, and it's called rental application. And that will ask for a little more details about you, your contact information, your references, your job or your situation here, probably your status here. And in that form, you may see something which might not be available for newcomers, like references. So for those who are very new here, finding reference might be kind of challenging. But even if you have any relatives or your friends or neighbors who knows you a little bit, check with them to see if you can put their name as a reference. And also the salary, if you don't have job, talk with the landlord and explain this, I'm a student, and what are the other options to provide instead of job-related questions. And in case if the landlord accepts everything based on the rental application, then the next step will be the agreement, lease agreement. That's the most important part, because when you sign the papers, then after that cancellation is not that easy and normally comes with the penalty fee. So make sure to read the agreement very, very carefully. And if you have any question, make sure to clarify your concerns with the landlord and get more information. Like, for example, the utility bills sometimes are included and sometimes are excluded. Utilities are like gas, water, electricity, and sometimes even internet. So check with the landlord which part is yours and which part is landlord's, and how the process is for registration in case if you need to apply by yourself. First and last check is another thing which is very normal here, and it's in part of your agreement. Most of the owners and the landlords will ask for first and last month's rental payment in advance. So that is very normal, but sometimes in some cases when people are new and they have no other supportive documents, the landlords may ask for additional months payment in advance. If that is an option and if it's doable, that's fine. If it's not, talk with the landlord again to see what other options are available and how flexible they can be. So make sure to read everything very carefully, and make sure always negotiate with the landlord if there is any concern and questions. Home repairs is another thing which is really important to check with the landlord, because if something happened in the building, it's connected to the units. You need to talk with the landlord first before touching anything. And post-dated check, which we mentioned here, is about how you pay the lease and monthly fee. That's one option, but if the checks are not available, talk with the landlord, see what other options they provide. They probably accept email transfer or even cash. In case if you are paying cash, make sure to get a receipt and have some kind of proof for future needs, especially for the time of tax filing. That's something you may need. And lease termination, which is part of the agreement. And if it's a fixed agreement, a lease termination, it could be like a year after the starting the agreement. And if you are planning to move out at exactly the same time, you normally need to provide a 60 days notice to the landlord before moving out. Otherwise, it will be considered as a month-to-month tenancy, and it will be continued. So that's part of the agreement as well. And I'm going to talk very briefly about all of those. And in our future sessions, we will talk in more details about all of these forms, and we can show you in more details how they works, and we can show the samples. Thank you. Can we skip this one, please? Okay, thank you. And yeah, I already talked about agreements. So there are something else you may need to consider in an agreement. So most of the time, the landlord will put them all in the agreement as condition, like permitting landlord to enter the units. It's not a very usual and often things, but in case of like fixing something or repairing something, the landlord may need to visit the unit. Or in case of, especially at the end of the tenancy, if the landlord wants to show the units to another potential tenants, or for another reason, like selling the property or whatever, they may need to enter the units, and they need a permit from the tenants, but it's all by the notice. It's not like shocking or suddenly happened all of a sudden. They show up at the door. It's not like that. They will notice. They will send a notice to the tenant, and then will arrange the time and everything. And after that, they will be able to enter. Rent increase, it cannot happen during the fixed agreement, because the fixed agreement, everything was confirmed at the beginning. But at the end of the contract, if you're going to continue, like for example, after a year, and if you're going to continue, there is a possibility of increase on rent, but it's not like any amount. They are normally very specific amount announced by the government, and you can check online as well. And that's about rent increasing, and the owner will let you know in advance. And giving notice, we already talked about that. In case if anybody wants to terminate the lease before the end of agreement, again, notice is needed. But the problem is if any cancellation, any agreement needs to be cancelled in a middle of the agreement, then the penalty fee might be applied. So just in case if you want to cancel your agreement, make sure to talk with the landlord first to see if there is any way to avoid this penalty fee. They might offer some other options to avoid the penalty fee as well. And legal rights to revent permission and legal bindings documents. These are all the things and conditions you need to read very carefully your agreements to have information about. So don't sign any papers without reading that very, very carefully, please. Next, please. Thank you. The next step after signing the contract will be moving. So if it's your first time moving and you have no experience before, make sure to bring some essential items with you before moving. You may need to bring some cleaning stuff, like very basic cleaning stuff to clean the space. Most of the times it's supposed to get the space clean, but depends on your standards. You may need to clean a little more, so you need those stuffs as well. First aid kits could be another important things to bring with you. If you are going to move with bigger items and furniture, you may need to book or talk with a moving company or rent a truck. If not, probably just you can do everything by yourself or ask a friend to help you with moving. And in case if you have bigger items and you are going to move to an apartment or a condominium with elevators, you need to book the elevators in advance. So make sure to book elevators if you have big items to move into your new place. If it's like just a small box, no worries. Tenant landlord's rights and responsibility. Again, make sure to check everything on your agreement very carefully. In addition, check additional things with the landlord and with the building, like repair related process, and also rules of the building, like no smoking units or noising rules, or what time you cannot have a louder noise, and all rules of the building, in addition with the rules of the units. Check everything with the landlord and with the building if you're living in a higher or bigger buildings with different units. More things to know. It's about responsibility for utility bills, as we talked before. So make sure to know who is responsible for paying the bills, because if it's yours, you need to make sure to pay everything on time and you have no delay. And ask the landlord the average of the utility cost. That's another thing to consider. You need to consider before signing the contract, because you have to see how much is your monthly budget for your house. It could be your place, transportation, utilities, and then based on all those costs, you can decide where to live. Take your pictures before going, and just in case maybe you need it for future to show how you get the place at the first point. And condition of canceling, we already talked about that, so make sure to check the agreement. So we can skip this one as well. Okay, in case of shared place, if you're sharing a place with a friend or with the owner, so there are additional rules between you two or more people to use the shared space, like the bathroom or kitchen might be shared, and you need to know your responsibility, who is responsible for cleaning, and how is the process. And landlord and tenant law doesn't apply at this case if you are living with a friend or the landlord in the same place as a shared space. And that's the difference. For more information, there is a website, very informative website we have here. You can save this link, cleo.on.ca. That's a very informative legal based website. You can get lots of information at this link about landlord and tenants. When you are moving, always make sure to provide 60 days notice to the landlord. That's part of the contract. And if any utilities are under your name, make sure to cancel all of those and change all of your address to the new address. Nobody will be responsible to the package that you receive after moving out, and you still receive a package at the previous place. Return the apartment key to the landlord, and that's part of the agreement as well. And normally they get a deposit for the key in advance, and once you return the keys, that money will be back to you. Here are some more helpful links that we are going to give more details about in our future sessions, and we can explain more. You can take a screenshot just for your information if you want to check the links and get more information, but because of the time limit, we don't have enough time to explain them one by one, but those could be very helpful for your information. Please take a screenshot if you need to have those for your information. Okay, thank you. And this is probably the last part. I'm going to explain a little more. That this is a map about. This is not. I have to say this is not a very updated map, but it shows the different. The rental amount in different part of the city. So it all depends. This map shows the locations around subway stations. So, you know, because of the access with the subway, when you are getting closer to the subway stations, the rental amount might be a little more than far from subway stations, because you need additional transportation time and probably cost to get to the subway and get access to your work or your university or college. So here you see the difference, and it can give you kind of idea about the different part of the city and how lease lease amount or rental amount can be changed. As you see on the purple part, which is in downtown area, you have higher amount for rental. So when you are getting closer to Yonge Street, it's higher. When you're getting closer to subway station, it's higher. So if you go far from Yonge Street, or if you go to the west and east side of Yonge Street, not very close to downtown area, so the amount could be more affordable. So it's just to give some idea about how it may change in different neighborhoods in the city. And these are some other helpful websites to search for housing. So please take a screenshot from these. We will explain all of those in more details in our future sessions. And yeah, thank you so much all. I hope this session could be helpful, and hope to see you all in our future sessions. And we will be in contact. Thank you and have a great day.
Excellent. Thank you so much to Mehrez and to Jaya as well. That was a great, very informational session there. So hopefully you guys took some screenshots, especially of those. I do want to just issue a reminder as well that we will be posting the recordings to all of these presentations. So if there was any information there that you felt like you missed and you really want to see again, you can always check out the recording just for your own reference so that you're getting the information that you need. So at this point, I would like to pass things over to Melissa Harris, who's our immigration consultant, for her presentation.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Melissa Harris. I'm an RCIC, and I've been doing immigration in Canada since 2003. I also am a licensed paralegal in Ontario, and I did 1 year of law school at the University of London. So I have an extensive background when it comes to immigration, and I'm here to help you to make sure that you comply with all the conditions if your plan is to stay in Canada and apply for permanent residence. So I want to welcome you to Canada, and sorry, can we make the agenda a little bigger? How do I do that? Thank you. Okay. So the agenda here is be diligent and understand your immigration status. So what we're talking about here, so your passport has to be valid for the time of your studies. And so you want to make sure, and if you need to extend your study permit, that you do that within 30 days. Failure to renew your study permit will give you no status. And then you have to do the option of restoration of status, which you do within 90 days. We're going to talk about it a little more. So it's very important to be diligent to make sure that your documents are up to date, that your status is up to date. And another thing, when you come to Canada and you come as a student, if you're doing co-op, that it's on there and that you're able to work. So if anywhere on your documents say that you cannot work in Canada, you must do an amendment. We're going to talk about that. So your passport and the expiry dates, your study permit will expire usually 30 days before your passport does. So if your passport is expiring, your study permit will not be longer than your passport. So something to look at. Study permit and extensions, we do them online. It's the fastest way because if there's a problem, it won't accept it. And when your study permit isn't long enough, or if you have a scheduled break, or you have an issue with a program, if you have to leave due to pregnancy, a death in the family, usually can go for 150 days as long as you meet the requirements, but you just can't go home and come back and expect to be in the program. So something you also want to look at is your co-op permit. When you come to Canada and you're coming into a program that has co-op, and you see that you don't have this, then you need to do an amendment immediately. Because if you wait till your third semester, it's going to take 4 months. You're not going to be able to get it. And so that ties in with work permits, and also work permits is a postgraduate work permit. So a lot of people think as soon as they graduate, they can start working full time. The answer is you cannot. Usually for your documents from a college or university take anywhere between 35 and 45 days. And there is exceptions if you have a job offer from your co-op. And so during that time, you could only work 20 hours a week. Okay, so and then we're going to talk about entry visas. For some reason, it's up to the government to decide if you're going to get a one-time entry or a multiple entry visa. If you get a one-time entry visa, you need to apply again so that you can leave and come back. So always check. Most of them are multiple, but we have seen students that have a one-time entry. And we will be having things throughout the year that we're going to be able to help you with that. When can I work and how many hours can I work? This all depends if you're on a scheduled break, winter break, if you're on reading week, or if you're on your official break, you are allowed to work full-time. So, sorry, full-time. And so when we talk about full-time, this becomes a question of concern for a lot of students. So what does Ontario consider full-time? So we have to take a look at the Employment Standard Act, which tells us that an employer can work 6 days a week for 48 hours. The issue we have is overtime. And so if the workplace is going to pay you the overtime, then you are permitted to work more hours. So it has to follow the regulations of the Ontario Employment Standard Act. Okay, so restoration of status within 90 days only. This is very important. So I have noticed that a lot of people, their study permits have expired on April 30th, and they weren't applying to renew their study permit. So you have two options. So your course finishes, say for an example, April 22nd, and your study permit only goes to April 30th. You have two options. You either have to extend your study visa or you need to apply for a visitor visa to extend your status so you can apply for the postgraduate open work permit. Once you've applied for your postgraduate open work permit and it shows that it's in process, you are allowed to work full-time until a decision is made. If the decision is made that you're not allowed to have the postgraduate because you didn't comply with the conditions, and when we talk about complying with the conditions, you didn't go to school and you worked, that will nullify your postgraduate work permit. So what we really want to say is, you know, it's very important that you comply with the conditions in Canada, attend your classes, only work the 20 hours a week. And so a lot of people come and they talk about if they're working for Uber. So as long as you're on the clock, you have to count those hours. So even if you're on call, they say you have to count those hours. And it's your job if you're self-employed to keep track of those hours. And if you're working for a company and they ask you to stay longer and it's going to be more than 20 hours a week, you have to say no. And so something we're going to talk about, replacement of lost or stolen documents. So really important, and this is, we're going to go through all of this one by one. When you get your documents, first of all, keep them in a safe place. Second of all, make copies of them because you may need them if you lose your documents. And there is a way to replace a lost or stolen document on the IRCC website. So the next thing that we're just going to talk briefly about, and then we're going to go into it, inviting a family member. Okay, so you send a letter to your family, but you don't really have status in Canada. Canada is allowing them to come in on a tourist visa because they're going to say come for your graduation. However, the school doesn't provide a letter for that, but you would have enough documented proof that you are a student here, and you would send them a letter to invite them. Immigration Canada can see your file, and the important thing for them is to, number one, show that they're going to return back to their home country. The number one reason why people are refused a tourist visa into Canada is country conditions. They don't have a job in their own country, and Canada does not believe that they're going to return to their home country. And then after you've gone through your programs and you've complied with all the conditions, you get to apply for your postgraduate work permit. And this is considered, so I usually say postgraduate open work permit. This allows you to work for any employer. And so saying I go to school for 9 months, I'm going to get the postgraduate work permit for usually 9 months. If I go to school for 2 years, most times you get the postgraduate work permit for 3 years, and 3 years is the longest amount of time you can get it. Your postgraduate work permit is one per lifetime. So you couldn't, come back to school and apply for another postgraduate work permit. So it's very important when you're doing your postgraduate work. I'm going to tell you as a professional what I recommend. A lot of students finish their program and they go home for a year. I really say if your plan to come to Canada is to stay in Canada, I don't recommend you do that. I recommend that you apply for your postgraduate work permit and you find a job under the national occupation classifications in O, which is management, A, university, or B, usually college. And so for an example, you couldn't be a bartender. You couldn't just be a clerk in a clothing store. These are not the skill level that you need to have the work permit in. So as we go through this, we'll talk about the national occupation classification. After you work your 12 months, you take an English test and you apply for permanent residency, and that is through the Canadian Experience class. So you could do this yourself, or you could use a regulated Canadian immigration consultant to do this, or you could use a Canadian lawyer to do this. I know that a lot of people do their own paperwork, and if you're comfortable, do that. But if the agent you're dealing with is not licensed, I don't recommend using them. Because if there's a mistake on your documents, you are the only one that's going to pay for that mistake. And after you go through everything you have to get permanent residence, I think it's important that you use someone that's licensed, because they have to take what's called continuing professional development. They understand the change in laws, and they also have insurance to protect you if something should go wrong that is not your fault. So when you apply through permanent residence, it's the online express entry. So you're going to use the CEC, which is Canadian Experience class. But if you look at the express entry for federal skilled worker, the requirements are quite high. When we go down to the CEC, it's a computer AL. And what AL does is AL calculates everything. So he puts you in the right category. So I'm going to say if you come under the CEC, you meet all the requirements, there's no reason that you won't get permanent residence. So something to think about, right? So now we're just going to go through to the next slide. Okay. So here again, it says keep a record of expiry dates of your passport, study permits, temporary resident visas, and other legal documents. So you have to be on top of this, because if you're not on top of this, it could affect your study. If your study permit runs out, you cannot attend school. And you also can't work. But if your study permit runs out and you apply for restorations, during that time, you also cannot attend school until you get an answer. So very, very, very important. And I know the school has updated things, so they're going to also try to help you keep track of your documents. But at the end of the day, it's 100% your responsibility to do that. And so again, as I said, always keep a scanned copy of each of your immigration documents. Make note of your immigration client ID number. It's a unique client identification. It's an 8-digit, but I don't believe anymore that yours is an 8-digit number. I think now yours might say 11 dash 4 numbers dash 4 numbers, but the 11 dash, the first numbers you're not going to, it's not important when you're putting it in, but I noticed a lot of them are now coming with 10-digit numbers. So take the last 8 digits. Okay, so your study permit and your co-op work permit, this is your personal identification number assigned to you by Immigration Canada. So you come into Canada and you realize that on your study permit, it says that you're not able to work off campus. So this is something that's a mistake. So you need to send it in and have it amended, right? So I'm just going to go here. Okay, so if your study permit does not have it, okay, if your study permit doesn't have the work conditions on it, you can ask to have these conditions added if you're eligible to work off campus. There is no fee to add these conditions to your permit. You need to request an amendment of your study permit before you can apply for your SIN number within Canada. So your SIN number sometimes does expire, but if you've applied to renew your study permit, you could still use it. Once you have your new document in hand, then you can go and apply online to extend your SIN number, because for international students, they do expire. Okay, so something that we want to be aware of. Oh, I think it's moving too fast. Okay, so there's no immigration documents will be issued to you with a validity date beyond the expiry date of your passport. Take note of your passport expiry date. Be sure you know how to renew your passport if needed. So here's a condition that you may look at. You may be finishing your program and you're applying for your postgraduate permit, open permit, and it's only going to be extended till the date of your passport. But they will notify you because you will have more time and you will get a new passport, and they will send you an email into your account telling you that you can extend it. But what we really hope you do is that when you're coming to Canada, that you apply for a new passport so you have all the time needed. Depending on the country you come from, because some countries only have a 5-year passport like Iran, and other countries have 10 years. So if that should happen to you, you know, the government will reach out to you because you do have more time on it, so there's nothing to worry about. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so your study permit is a document that authorizes you to study, live, and work in Canada on a temporary basis. It is the most important document that international students receive. It's a legal status in Canada and helps you apply for a student card, social insurance number, and a work permit. Make sure it's valid for the duration of your program of study and stay in Canada. So a lot of people don't have or do have a multiple entry visa, in which case you can come and go in and out of Canada. If you don't, you just apply for a TRV if you're planning to go to your home country for an official break. And we could go to the next slide. Okay. Again, here is a copy of a sample of a study permit. And so again, your UCI, Universal Client ID number, is located on the study permit. This is the number that Immigration Refugee Citizen Canada uses to identify you for any inquiries on the application you make. So each person has a unique number, so you always have to keep that number somewhere safe. But if you keep a copy of your documents, and maybe even put it in your phone if your documents are going to expire. Now, we recommend that you apply to renew your permits within 30 days. But for those of you that are watching this that have 3 days before you need to renew your document, it's still possible. If you're doing it online, as long as you do it the day before. Once the day of comes, you lose your status in Canada, you apply for restoration, and during that process, you're not allowed to work or go to school. So it's a very big thing, and it's something you don't want to run into. And if more than 90 days have passed, you have to leave Canada. And failure to leave Canada will be a deportation order. And a deportation order, it's very difficult to come back from. So if you know and you're watching this that your study permit has expired, please reach out to the school so that we can help you do restoration. And at least you'll be able to stay here until your application is processed. Okay, if a co-op term is required in your program, you need to obtain a co-op work permit from Iocc. So the permit is normally given at the port of entry. If not, students can apply separately through their Iocc account. This is something that should be looking at now, is it will take Iocc, Immigration Refugee Citizen Canada, time to process. Apply as soon as possible. So you just came into Canada and you realize that you don't have the co-op work permit. You need to get a letter from the school, and then you just apply online. And the sooner you do that, the faster it is, because you cannot do your co-op without it. Okay. If you have a valid study permit and you're a registered full-time active student, you would be eligible to work off campus. This will be stated on your study permit under the conditions sections of your document. If it does not provide you to work off campus, contact immigration or the campus as soon as possible. So if it's not on there, again, you do an amendment. There's no cost for you to do this because if you're a full-time student at a public college, you're allowed to work 20 hours a week while you're doing your academic year. Once classes started, so saying I came in April and my class is starting on May 9th, I cannot start working until I'm actually a full-time student. And there's one more thing you want to think of. If you're on your academic break, you have to be full-time before and you have to be full-time when you come back. Unless, of course, it's your last semester and you're on part-time because you only have a few classes left, and that is the only condition. So if you're going to come to Canada and work, you must start your program before you work. You may work up to 20 hours per week during the academic year, starting once you're in class. During summer months and school breaks, reading week, winter break, etc., you may work full-time. An official break, full-time starts the first day of the semester. So, you know, if I'm on an official break and I'm working full-time and it starts on May 9th, then I can work full-time on May 9th. And so these are things you want to remember. Okay, a postgraduate open work permit. So here I said postgraduate work permit, but it's an open work permit that allows you to work in Canada for any employer. The duration of the postgraduate work permit depends on the length of your study. It's usually between 1 and 3 years. Okay, so when you're doing this, conditions required to apply. You complete your full-time post-secondary studies. Your institution is a public designated learning institute, which Lambton College is. And you can look these up. They're called DLIs. So if the DLI you're going to, and it's definitely not going to happen at Lambton, but if the DLI, or if you know someone that's going to a school that's a designated learning institute and they lose that status, you definitely want to tell them to come over to Lambton because we're never losing it. Okay, so the length of your program has to be at least 8 months. Your study permit was valid when you applied for your postgraduate work permit. So this is a very important thing because for those students that I recently spoke to that their study permit was expiring on April 30th, if you've applied for a new study permit, then you have what's called implied status. You do have to let the college know that you have implied status so you can receive your documents for your postgraduate work permit. Now, some students were under the impression that they can apply for their postgraduate work permit because they have implied status, but it's not true. As long as you have implied status and you applied before your study permit expired, it's not the student's fault that the government's taken this amount of time. So if you have implied status, you can apply for your postgraduate work permit. And then as soon as you apply for your postgraduate work permit, as soon as it's in process, you are allowed to work full-time. And then we've had some new policies that come in. So January 8th, 2021, students in Canada affected by the pandemic with an expired, with an expiring postgraduate work permit can have a chance to apply for another open work permit, which is valid for 18 months to allow former international students to remain in Canada and continue to seek employment and build their future in the country. Now, this was an exception made due to COVID-19. And what had happened there is a lot of our industries were closed because of the pandemic. So people were not able to work and international students were not able to find jobs. So therefore, they weren't allowed to apply for their permanent residency in Canada. So Canada's made this exception. Now I'm pretty sure that things are coming back to normal, and I don't think that unless, you know, we have another outbreak, I don't think this policy will continue going forward. Okay. So here, you know, I'm coming to Canada to study and I want to bring my spouse. Okay, work permits for spouses. Your spouse or common law partner may apply for an open work permit if you're a full-time student and you have a valid study permit. Your spouse or partner will not require a job offer to apply, and his or her permit's valid for the same period if you're studying. So when we look at this, this isn't 100%. I've seen people that have been able to come and bring their partner, and I've seen people that haven't been able to come. So this again is at the discretion of IRCC. But if you want to bring your spouse when they come to Canada, the validity depends on yours. So if you decide to not continue your studies, they will not be able to continue to have an open work permit. So this is great because if you're coming with your partner, they can work while you study. So it's something you can apply for, and we will probably have a seminar on this going forward. Okay, so a TRV, a temporary resident visa for visitor entry visa is required to enter Canada, and it's issued at a place and placed in your passport when you apply for a study permit and receive approval from the Canadian Embassy. Unlike your study permit, it's okay to let your temporary resident visa expire if you're only required to have a valid TRV if you'll be traveling outside of Canada. If you plan to travel, ensure that you have a valid TRV, that you're allowed, and you allow at least 90 days to apply for one before your scheduled departure date. So some people have a multiple entry and sometimes people here. So this is a multiple, it says right there, and it's a V1. You could have a one-time entry. If you're not planning to leave Canada, it's not a big deal. If you're planning to leave Canada, at least apply 90 days before. Extensions on study permits. The expiry date of your study permit tells you have to stop studying. The date could be the length of your study, but usually what happens is when you get your study permit, it's supposed to be at least 90 days after your study has ended. The program gives you the 90 extra days. The extra 90 days gives you time to prepare to leave Canada or to apply to extend your status in Canada, usually the postgraduate open work permit. If your passport will expire before you finish your studies, the expiry date on the 30 days will be 30 days before the expiry of your passport. So if possible, make sure that your passport is new when you come to Canada, so it's going to match the time, or at least that it has 3 years on it. If you finish your studies earlier than expected, your permit will expire 90 days after the days you complete your study. So it doesn't really matter what it says on your study permit. If you finish early, it's going to expire early. So when you finish early, you will get your documents from the college and apply for the postgraduate open work permit. A study permit should be extended at least 30 days before it expires, but you could do it even 2 days online, but it's not recommended. But for those people that are in a tight situation, if it is expiring, please apply online. Okay, so restoration. So this is restoration. It's in some cases you may have to apply to restore your status as a student. So to apply, you must submit your application within 90 days of losing your status under Section A47 of Immigration Refugee Protection Act. Meet the initial requirements of your stay. Remain in Canada until a decision is made. So meaning meet the initial requirements of your stay is that you came here to go to school, but once you lose your status, you can't go to school and you can't work. Remain in Canada until a decision is made. Meet the conditions listed on your permit. Pay the government application fee for restoration is currently $200. If you apply for restoration, you cannot continue to attend school or work until the authorization has been restored and a new study or work permit has been issued. So replacement of lost or stolen documents, it's called verification of status. When you go on the IRCC website, you would just, Immigration Refugee Citizen Canada website, you would just go to verification of status, VOS, and it'll come right up. Okay, so here we're getting to the end and I'm running out of time, I'm sorry. Immigration Refugee Citizen Canada expects all international students to be registered and studying full-time in the courses of their academic program. Unscheduled breaks or part-time studies can impact the status in Canada. If you become a part-time student cannot attend during the given semester, please consult the college. Exceptions may be last semester before graduation if you only have a few classes. Poor academic performance can impact your ability to renew your study permit. Be proactive. If you're struggling for any reason, please consult the college for resources and support. Inviting family members to come. Okay, so all international students may invite spouses, common law partner, children, and parents to visit you in Canada. Families must apply for a visitor visa if from a country that requires a visitor visa. So some people need an ETA depending on where you live, and some people need to apply for a visitor visa. So spouses may apply for an open work permit if they wish to stay in Canada long-term with their spouses. Parents will require a visitor visa to apply. An invitation will have to be extended by the international student. Children, if traveling with the applicant, and this is something that a lot of people don't know, do not need to apply for a study permit. Once in Canada, they can attend school, but not post-secondary. And we'll have passport stamps, the same expiry date as the parent's permit. If children are left behind, they will need a visitor visa or an ETA to be issued in order to visit Canada. A lot of people came to me about this one question, and you don't need to apply for a study permit for them, because as long as you're here going to school, they are permitted to go to school with you. Okay, so then we're going to go, there are several streams to become a permanent resident. Most popular and recommended initial students is through the express entry called Canadian Experience class or a skilled worker. So you qualify and process through assessments, must qualify to apply. Express entry measures and scores the entire profile. But what we're going to say is most international students come through Canadian Experience class. I find it's one of the easier programs to come through. And I think that is my last slide. And are we on time? Nope, it isn't. Okay, I think this is the last slide.
Yeah, this.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so advice from your peers. Attend your classes, be an engaged student, observe, listen, and speak. Be honest, set realistic expectations, ask for help when you need it. So if you feel you're struggling, there are a lot of supports at the college. It's really important that you reach out, because the college is here to help you. Connect. Connecting can be intimidated, but take time to meet your classmates and your professors. Find your voice, express confidence and authority in your research and essays. Be flexible. It's normal to experience some setbacks, especially when you're coming into a new country, and there's a lot of things that you might feel overwhelmed, but I'm going to say that we are here to help you. Plan ahead. Don't leave anything to the last minute, because procrastination is a killer. So I'd also like to say, oh yes, traveling to Canada by air during COVID-19. So the best information I can give you on this is check with the airlines, okay? So the airlines are being updated daily. Must currently be vaccinated to enter Canada. Anyone who refuses to be vaccinated will be not permitted into Canada to attend classes. And at this case, if you choose not to be vaccinated, to come into Canada, then you know the school can't give you a letter to say that you're putting it off for another term, because we don't know when the vaccinations will not be required to come to Canada. Is that my last slide? No. Okay, sorry. Okay, so and this is just information on me. I'm just running late and I don't want to take someone else's time. So I'm Melissa Harris. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I also sat on the board of ICCRC for 2 years. And I'm on the campus every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. if you want to see me in person, or you could reach me online to chat, or you can send an email and I will get back to you. So Wednesday 11 to 1, Thursday 11 to 1, and Friday 12 to 2. And I just want to tell you, I'm very happy you're in Canada. Welcome to Canada. And I hope Canada is very successful for you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. And
Thank
no
you.
worries about the time at all. You were pretty much bang on a half hour, maybe just a slight bit over. So thank you so much for all that valuable information.
Have a great day.
You too. At this point, I'll pass things on to Peter Tells Langdon to do the co-op and employment orientation portion. Take it away, Peter.
Hello, is my voice getting through?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, welcome students to Lambton College in Toronto. I'm Peter Tallis Langan. I'm going to talk to you about co-op and employment orientation. Next slide. Okay, here is a list of the co-op advisors that are available to you. We have Brian Messias, who is the co-op and career manager, and he covers the CCBT and SCMT courses. Please make note of who your co-op advisor is for your course. All of us are willing to help any student with their needs, but only your co-op advisor will be able to actually sign off on things. So make sure you contact the co-op advisor that is for your program. We have Diana McLennan, who does BMAT, CPCT, and CPMT. We have Pamela Chan, who is the career advisor for MADT, MMDT, MMPT, PMIT, and PMLT. We have me, Peter Tallis Langan. I do BMHT, CSAT, and FPWT. And we have Andrea Spence, who will be doing the AIMT, OHST, and QEMT courses. You can email us directly, so if we're covering your program, by all means, email your co-op advisor directly. If you want, you can always email careers@stedstarcollege.com, and that will come to all of the co-op advisors. The services we offer, well, certainly one-on-one appointments. You can book an appointment with us and we can help you directly. We do resume critiquing. Resumes are different in North America than they are in other places of the world. So make sure that you get your co-op advisor to check your resume. Understand it's 2022, certainly in North America. Applicant tracking systems are everywhere. Your resume is going to be read by a machine. If it's not designed to be read by the machine, no human's going to see it. So get your resume checked. We do cover letter critiquing. This is another thing that's changed greatly over the last few years. We can help you to design a cover letter that inspires an employer to want to meet you. We do job search assistance. We'll help you with your online presence. That's very important these days because, yes, employers do check. We can do interview preparation. I know interviews are scary. They don't have to be. Talk to your co-op advisor. We can help you with that. And we do mock interviews for students as well. Our role here is to provide, career and employment development services and resources for, co-op students and actually all students in the college. We help with resumes, cover letters, interviews, work term recruitment, assessment for the suitability of a work term employment opportunity, and we monitor the co-op term. We do ongoing development of the CPP 1001 co-op preparation course, which is mandatory for all co-op students. We do conduct classroom visits, term 1 and term 3, all about co-op, and we offer career services to all students, helping them with their marketing materials and job search. And again, we do one-on-one appointments. You can book this through the My Career system. Find the time that's good for you, and we'll set up a meeting. The expectations on your co-op work term, well, you have to complete the full co-op contract. That's a 4-month term, so you must complete all the hours in the 4-month term. The minimum allowable hours is 420. Most students do much more than that. You do have to work the entire term. You must work 30 to 40 hours a week, no more, no less. completion of the online Moodle modules. So you will have schoolwork while you're doing co-op as well. And submission of the required paperwork at the end of your term. Okay, how do you communicate with us? Well, get to know your My Lambton email, because this is how advisors communicate with students. You should be checking your My Lambton email regularly. Start becoming familiar with it, because that's how we communicate. Advisors send out all co-op information to your My Lambton email. Career services, co-op questions, it all has to come through your My Lambton email. Use it. Okay, the co-op preparation course, or CPP 1001, is in term 2. All students in a co-op program are required to take the CPP 1001 course. It's a 10-week course. And yes, you have to pass it. It's not just taking it, but you have to pass it. It is a graded course. It will affect your GPA, so please take it seriously. It will also cover important topics around co-op approvals, policies, co-op search resources, marketing materials. We'll look very carefully at your resume, cover letter, online profile, interview skills, etc. We will talk about networking. Networking is really important. It is the best way to get the best jobs. We'll also talk about the events, marketing, research, and job search strategies. The My Career website, become familiar with it. You're going to use it a lot. This is where you go to book appointments with your co-op advisors. That's where part-time positions are posted under career services. Any of the events, job fairs, etc. are posted there under career services, and co-op job postings for term 3 are listed under co-op, not career services. So become familiar with the My Career website. And this is what the page looks like. Okay, your My Career login. Your username is your student ID, C0, whatever the numbers are. The password is the same as your My Lambton email. If you want to know that email, it's the same as your My Lambton email password, not the same as Moodle. So these are two different sections that have two different passwords. Here's a picture of the My Career. And you can see the arrow is pointing at career services. That's where you go and scroll down and find jobs under career services for the part-time jobs. Here it is again. This time you see the arrows are pointing at co-op, job postings, and appointments. This is where you go to contact your co-op advisors. Always, check out co-op. For co-op jobs, it'll be under co-op job postings. And if you need to make an appointment, you go to co-op, then down to appointments, and you'll see, the co-op advisors there, and you can pick your spot. My Career does post events. There are several. A lot of them are being done virtually still. At different times, though, we will have events here. It's a great place to meet employers, practice your skills, certainly partake in the events when they're available. Okay, advertised versus the hidden job market. Okay, the picture shows the advertised jobs, the jobs you see on Indeed, etc. And then underneath, there's the hidden job market. These are the jobs that aren't necessarily advertised, but they're there, and we can help you find the ways of connecting with those jobs. A basic job search, online job boards, Google postings, social media, Twitter, advertisements, agencies, that's the advertised jobs. Places you can go, certainly Indeed, Eluda, Talented, LinkedIn, Job Monster, the job board. There's a ton of them. There's lots of online places to look for jobs. Networking is the best way to get the best jobs. It's meeting new people, making connections, building and maintaining relationships, keeping in contact, and it's an ongoing process. It's reciprocating with people, helping them, letting them help you. Always be authentic, be real, make a friend. That's what networking is. It's not just going out and getting as many likes as you can. I know that's a big thing on Facebook, but in reality, it makes no difference. Networking is not just asking people to give you a job. The answer is no. But if you make a friend, they may just come up and say, I want you to work for me. So it's more about building relationships. It's not a scripted process. It's not the same for every job seeker, and it's not instant. It's a slow process. The sooner you start networking in Canada and making connections, the easier life is going to be for you. Okay, we do have resources for students. For networking, there is the Young Professionals Network in Ontario, Hip House, Meetup.com, 10,000 Coffees, and there's the links to those. For job search, certainly Indeed, everybody knows Indeed, but there's also the Job Bank, Eluda, LinkedIn, Talented, Job Monster, Workopolis. You can Google it, but there are some resources here. There are local events that you might want to connect with, through Eventbrite. The Canada Job Expo is certainly a good one. There's Peter's New Jobs, nothing to do with me. And there's the links for those as well. Email etiquette. This is really important. When you're communicating with the college or anyone, certainly with employers, send professional emails as part of your job application. This is the first impression they have of you. Even before they look at your resume, they're going to see your style in your emails. Thank you emails are a good practice when following up with employers. Ensure you leave positive, lasting impression. When emailing, ensure that you're referring to the individual in the appropriate manner. Sir, Madam, Mr., Mrs. Use their title. Never send a blank email. Always include text in your email and briefly explain why you're contacting this person. Now, when you're setting up your My Lambton email, set up a signature. Make sure it has your name, your student number, and what program you're in. That will mean we'll respond to you even faster because we know what we're dealing with. Just a name means I've got to figure out what your student number is and then look you up. Make it easy. Set up a signature with your name, student number, and the program you're in. Cover letters. They have changed a lot in the last few years. The cover letter is to introduce yourself and inspire the employer to want to meet you. It's a chance to demonstrate your communication skills. To be successful in applying for jobs, you need what and you need why. Your resume is your what. It's what skills you have, what you've learned, what your experience is. All of your what goes in your resume. Your cover letter needs to show me why would I hire you over the other 800 equally qualified applicants? What makes you special? What makes you unique? That is interesting. Please don't repeat your resume in your cover letter, because that's boring. Don't bore an employer. It's no more than one page. Should always have your name and contact info at the top. Write it in full sentences, complete paragraphs. You can tweak it to each employer. Check the job description, make sure that it shows that you're the right person for the job. And don't use italics, don't use columns. Neither of those will get past an applicant tracking system. You should never have columns and stuff like that in your cover letter. The resume, vital document. Everybody's got to have one. It shows your relevant education, experience. There is a difference between a resume and a CV. In North America, we use resumes. You can highlight additional, qualifications and skills. There's ways to do that, and we'll show you. It should be 1 or 2 pages, but not more than 2 pages. As wonderful as you are, and as amazing as your life has been, nobody wants to read your autobiography. 2 pages max. Always include a letterhead at the top with your contact information. It should be in point form. Again, tweak it to the job and the job description. Check the job description and try and put some keywords in. Don't use headers, footers, text boxes, fancy bullets, borders, any extra lines across the page. The bottom line is, don't make it look pretty. The machine that's going to read your resume doesn't like pretty. Keep it plain, keep it simple, keep the information easy for the employer to access. You got to answer the question, why would I hire you? The average response to an ad on Indeed is 868. An applicant tracking system can shrink that down to 300. Will you want to read 300 resumes? Of course not. Nobody does. No employer wants to. So make sure it's short, clear, easy to understand so the employer can get the information they need quickly and easily. Okay, you have to decide, you have to determine if you are eligible for co-op. So read and understand the policies and procedures for co-op. You must have a program cumulative grade point average of 2.8 or better by the start of term 3. Usually this is determined at the end of term 2, but you can have to the start of term 3 to get that 2.8 GPA. You must have been enrolled in and successfully completed all program courses before co-op starts. You have to have successfully completed the CPP 1001 course, and of course you have to have your fees all paid. Eligibility is determined at the end of term 2, but there is a possibility to do a makeup course during your break to boost that up before term 3 starts. So here's the co-op preparation timeline. For term 1 and term 2, they're very, very similar. You can work part-time up to 20 hours per week. You can do employment in any field you want. Smart people find something that is going to enhance their field, whatever they're studying. If the work's related, it's way better. You want to try and always get that 2.8 or better GPA. There's no restrictions on the type of work, but keep in mind, studying is a priority. You want to keep that GPA. Don't let the work interfere with the schooling that you're here to get. Okay. During your break, you can work full-time. You should be certainly networking by the time you start your break. You can do industry research. You'll have time to check out job fairs. If you need to do a makeup course, this is when you want to get it done. Volunteering is a great way to get extra experience. It is a section on your resume that should be there. So look into any kind of volunteer work, that's always a plus. Term 4. Yeah, term 3 is like term 1 and term 2. Term 4, this is your co-op term. You must have a co-op work permit. So think about this early. Make sure you have all this in place before term 4 arrives. Because if you're starting on the first day to figure out your co-op work permit, you're too late. So have some forethought, plan ahead. Co-op is full-time work. It must be 30 to 40 hours a week. It must be in your field. It must be related to your program of study. We have a thing called a vocational learning outcomes, or VLO. Any co-op position must meet at least 50% of your program's VLO. So it must meet, okay. Okay. Must meet co-op eligibility requirements. It has to be approved by your co-op advisor. So make sure you check with your co-op advisor, and it must be found and approved before the term starts. If you leave it till the last minute, the deadline will pass and you'll lose a term. Don't do that. It's a very bad idea. Okay. So co-op is for people that have 2.8 or above and have successfully completed all their courses and of course paid their fees. If you are not eligible for co-op, you will be put in work integrated learning. It's for people that don't meet the co-op requirements. There'll be more information about work integrated learning coming. If you're having difficulty finding a co-op, keep in mind, work integrated learning is not an option. It's for those who do not qualify. If you qualify, you must find a co-op. Good news is there's lots out there. We've got lots of students working. There are jobs there, and we're here to help you find them. Okay, if you have questions or concerns about your co-op work permit, please contact immigration@cestarcollege.com. Any concerns with visas, permits, what's legal, contact immigration@cestar.com. They have all the immigration answers. If you have any concerns with resumes, cover letters, job search, interviews, etc., make an appointment with your co-op advisor. We are here to help. Have a great year.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Peter. Great presentation, and sorry about the slide order there. At this point, I'm actually going to pass things really quickly to Shauna just because she has an announcement to make. I know we're coming up on the 10:30 mark. So Shauna's going to make an announcement, and then we'll have our last really quick 15-minute presentation on Canadian culture. Go ahead, Shauna.
Thank you very much, Meg, and thank you, Peter. That was awesome. Good morning. My name is Shauna Sheldon. I head up the quality assurance team at Lambton College in Toronto. I'm also part of this orientation team. This is just a very quick housekeeping message. If you are in the FSQT program, you are welcome to stick around for the rest of the session. I have already let your coordinator know that we are running a tad long and that you'll be joining his session around 10:45. Of course, we're recording this session, so you can always jump into that session and meet the students. And watch the recording of this session if you want, but you have a little bit of flexibility, and that's it. Back to you, Meg.
Okay, thank you so much, Shauna. Short and sweet. So I'm gonna try to keep on that trend of short and sweet and talk very briefly on Canadian culture and society. And this presentation is really just geared towards giving you an expectation of what it might look like when you come to Canada, some things to be aware of, especially when you're interacting with the general public outside of the school space. So first of all, welcome. Some of you might not be here yet in the country, but if you will be soon, or if you are already, we're so excited to host you, and we hope that you enjoy being in Canada and being around Toronto. There's lots to explore. I've lived here for the last 6 years, and it never gets old. I'm still every year discovering new things to do and new things to be excited about. So let's talk first, before we get specifically into Canada, about what is culture. And the definition of culture is the attitudes, feelings, values, and behavior that characterize and inform society as a whole, or any social group within it. So thinking about that, it's a set of traits that a certain people share in a society that helps form their culture. And so Canadian culture, this is sort of an infographic of what some stereotypes of Canada might be. Some of you might have heard stuff like this already. I know there's a lot floating about. And to be honest, some of it's true, or at least half true. So, you know, there's Toronto, hockey, ice skating, maybe mountains. Maybe you've heard of maple syrup, beavers. All of these things are, of course, part of Canada, but Canadian culture is so much more than just these things. So today we're going to bust through some of those stereotypes, just like this guy busting through the window there to grab his Tim Hortons coffee, and talk about a more nuanced version of Canadian culture. So first, let's picture a scenario. Imagine you're walking through the hallway on campus, you're on your way to class, and you bump into an instructor who happens to drop her papers on the floor. What happens? Usually you apologize, of course, but then what happens? Well, in Canada, most likely, the instructor will apologize too. Canadians are unfailingly polite, unapologetically polite, pun intended, and it probably will happen where if you walk into somebody, you'll both say sorry, even if it was your fault. That's just sort of the normal way that we interact. And so Canadians take pride in being unfailingly polite. We take pride in being ethnically diverse. You'll really find that in Toronto. I think it's the most cosmopolitan city in the world. We have an egalitarian society, right? We want everybody to have equal opportunity, equal rights. We are tolerant of cultural and social differences. And we're also renowned for our humility, which goes into the saying sorry all the time thing. And I just want you to think about, as you're coming to Canada, what this means for you and how you're going to view Canadian culture while you're here. So let's talk into more specifics. Let's talk about body language and personal space. And every culture might have different expectations around personal space, around body language, and what these sort of nonverbal cues are saying in a social situation. So for posture and body language, you want to be open, right? Have your arms uncrossed. You can see in this little graphic that I provided that both people have this open body posture. Nobody's standing like this, closing themselves off. You also should have your hands out of your pockets. Having it in your pockets kind of, again, is that closed body language. You're shrinking up. It also doesn't make you look very confident. So being open is about looking friendly and approachable, but it's also about looking confident. If you're going for a job interview, like what Peter just talked about, you want to come off like you have charisma, like you're confident, you're comfortable in that situation. And then also you want to maintain eye contact. Super important to maintain eye contact just so that the person knows that you're engaged, you're listening. You'll probably want to be nodding along as well. And maintaining eye contact doesn't mean that you have to be like creepily staring into their eyes the whole time, but you know, make sure that you're glancing at them throughout the conversation and making that connection. And then in terms of personal space, Canadians do tend to like a little more personal space than many other cultures do. I think this is especially the case since COVID-19. People are much more aware of social distancing. So just make sure, you can kind of see in this image, it's almost like another person could fit here between the two of them. There's a good amount of space. They're still close together. They're still having that one-on-one conversation. But this woman isn't like right here on top of the man. So just be aware of that when you're talking with your colleagues or instructors or staff or anybody that you encounter. Let's talk about social interaction. So here are some things to keep in mind. You want to have a firm handshake. Again, this is generally just a sign of confidence that you're going in, you know what you're doing, you're happy with who you are, you're happy to be in that social situation. Also direct eye contact, like I just said, you don't want to be looking all over the place and you don't want to be kind of ignoring the person. So keep the focus on the speaker or the person that you're conversing with. Also smile. Canadians, I think, love to smile. We generally try to be kind of a happy or happy-go-lucky sort of people. So smiling in conversation can go a long way, and your smile can be very contagious. Also, address others by their first names. We have an informal culture here. We don't tend to address people by the last names. Of course, this will vary because if you're in a classroom situation, your instructor might in some cases want to be called Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, right? But in a lot of cases, people will ask you just to call them by their first names, especially if you're at work, if you're walking around campus, interacting with your colleagues. First names are the way to go. If you're meeting somebody and you shake hands, usually after the handshake, there should be no more physical contact, especially when you're first meeting somebody. Of course, it's going to be different with your close friends, but Canadians are a little bit uncomfortable with touch. It goes back to that personal space thing. In general, if you're standing close enough that you could kind of reach out and be touching the person as you're conversing, you might be standing a bit too close. So just keep that in mind. Always best to shake hands and then kind of take a step back and maintain that physical space. Finally, like I just kind of went into, pay attention to personal space. And for me, I think the big one here is just to pay attention to the cues. So if you're making eye contact with somebody, you should be able to kind of read their expression and read their body language. And you can tell if somebody looks uncomfortable. If you take a step up to them and then they kind of take a step back, that's probably a sign that they're a little bit uncomfortable with you getting that much closer to them. And they just want to maintain more space for them to feel comfortable in the conversation. So just pay attention to those cues and adjust your behavior accordingly. So here are some specific expectations around COVID-19. We do expect that masks should be worn indoors, especially on campus. Masks are still required on campus. You do have to have your vaccine certificate to be on campus. Of course, term 1 classes will be online for the summer, so many of you might not have to worry about that. But if you're coming in for a lab, if you're meeting with student services, if you want to meet in person with co-op, you do need to have that vaccine certificate. And then also, especially with COVID, keeping that physical distance is important just to help mitigate the spread of the virus. Let's picture another scenario. So you're stopped at a stoplight, the light's red for you, but maybe it's late, maybe it's 3 a.m. and there are no cars coming in the other direction. So what do? Do you take your chances and run the red light, or do you just wait until the light turns? And in Canada, you'll wait for the light to turn green. We are a nation of rule followers. So if there's a rule, even if you're kind of looking around going, oh, there's nobody here, I could probably just go through. I think 99% of Canadians would stay stopped at the light, wait for it to turn green, follow the rules. And we expect that of others as well. We expect that the people that come into the country are also going to be rule followers and are going to abide by the social norms. And let's talk about those social norms. So here are some expectations that we have. So be punctual, super important. If you're late for class or if you're late for an appointment or work, it just shows like you don't care, or maybe you're a bit of a slacker, and it's kind of a sign of disrespect. So being punctual in Canada is a sign of respect and being respectful of your peers and your colleagues. We also do expect that you'll follow the rules, and these include of authorities. So that might be governments, might be police, it might be the school. You'll also follow the rules of your instructors. They are in charge of the classroom space, and what they say in the class goes. So you want to be respectful of that, and you want to follow those rules. You also should follow the rules of the college. This goes into academic integrity policies, which we're going to be talking about more tomorrow, goes into COVID policies in terms of masking and vaccination, rules for when to meet with student services, rules for how to access campus. All these things are rules that you're going to want to be aware of and should be following while you're here on your studies. And then finally, also follow the rules of your colleagues. This is about personal respect. So it's respecting other people's boundaries. And if you're interacting with somebody who you know has certain boundaries or ways that they want to be interacted with, addressed, or treated, you should always be respectful of those and try to follow those. And finally, do not litter. This is not the sort of place where you'll be walking along and just kind of chuck your garbage on the ground. Please put it in the bin. All right, let's talk about communication. So you want to speak in English whenever possible and always when you're in class. So of course, if it's outside of class time, you're interacting with somebody who also speaks your native language, feel free to use it. But if you're in class, and especially on campus, again, it's just a sign of respect to speak in class, because the instructor might not speak the language that you're speaking, and even if it's harmless or meaningless, it might feel like you're saying something bad about them or something like that. So please use English just so that everybody can understand and that we can build better communication as a whole. Also, handle disagreements with tact and diplomacy. Canada, again, it goes back to kind of being apologetic and maybe a little meek. Not the sort of place where you'll usually, hop out of your car and start screaming at somebody, or you'll be really angry when you're handling a disagreement. We do ask that you communicate in a respectful manner, generally quiet tone of voice, and please avoid outward outbursts. Also, avoid interrupting someone else or speaking over them. Again, this goes to politeness. You want to let the person finish their thought. Absolutely. If they've paused, feel free to offer your opinion, but don't talk over others. It just seems disrespectful and makes it sound like you don't care about their opinions. Nonverbal expressions must be non-threatening. So, you don't want to be talking to somebody going like this or something. Just, keep that body language respectful. And also, this is just a general guideline. You can never say please or thank you enough. We're a very polite culture, and those sort of things go a long way. Also, this is on the other side. So not just talking, but listening. You want to be a skilled listener. Take cues from what the other person is saying. Maybe nod as they're talking, right? Repeat something if you have a question. Just be a good listener. And then also, no means no. If you ask something and you're told no, whether that be by instructor, maybe college administration, maybe it's a peer, no means no. So please respect the no, take the no as an answer. And then finally, pay attention to the tone and the pace of your own speech. You just always want to make sure as much as possible that you're speaking clearly. Are you speaking too quickly? And a great way to tell this is if somebody's missing what you're saying or they look kind of confused, maybe just slow down. All right, now finally, I want to talk really briefly about culture shock. So what is culture shock? And culture shock is a state of bewilderment and distress that's experienced by an individual who is suddenly exposed to a new, strange, or foreign social and cultural environment. And culture shock is something that you may very well experience when you're coming to Canada. You're in a different country, probably here for some of you for the first time, or the first time that you've been away from home for so long. And these things are pretty normal to come up. So I just want to give you a sense of what culture shock looks like, what to expect, and then finally ways to combat this, because we really want you to have a great experience at the college. And this goes down not just to your studies, but also to your mental health and making sure that you're keeping well. So culture shock has 3 stages. Stage 1, I'm identifying as the honeymoon period, where you're kind of excited to be there. Everything seems new and fresh. Then we have stage 2, which is resistance. This is when some of those doubts and homesickness start to creep in. And then finally, stage 3, which is the stage that we hope you'll all get to, is acceptance, where you see the pros and cons of the new culture and you feel like you're a more integrated member of society. So let's talk about stage 1, the honeymoon period. Usually this happens in the 1st to the 2nd month. Emotionally, you might feel excitement, anticipation. You could also feel sadness about leaving friends and family back home. But this might be replaced with feeling like, oh my gosh, there's so much to explore, there's so much to do, there's new people to meet. You can kind of feel like there's so many opportunities for you, and that's a really great feeling to have. Physically though, you might also feel fatigued because you're just exploring so much, right? There's almost too much to do. You might be tired, you might be withdrawn, and you might also have stomach nervousness. Maybe you feel a little bit of butterflies in your stomach just because there's so much going on, so much excitement and anticipation. Now, stage 2, again, this is where those doubts and maybe worse feelings start to creep in. So this often happens from the 2nd to the 6th month. Not the same for everybody, right? You might go through these stages quickly, might be a longer process. So emotionally, you might feel frustrated, you might feel anxious, you might feel angry, This is when some of the homesickness will start to creep in, not just that initial, oh, I just left home and I miss my family, but really kind of that aching for home and missing simple things that you never even would have thought you would miss. You know, you might miss the food, you might miss the streets that you always used to walk down, little things that the people of your home culture do that you're just not getting in Canada. And physically, this might make you feel kind of sleepy. You might feel a little antisocial. You just don't feel like going out. Maybe you would rather stay at home, talk on a Zoom to your friends back home so that you feel a little bit of that comfort. You could also get sick. For some people, sort of mental stress can manifest in a physical way. So you might find that you get a cold, you might get a headache. And then in terms of how you're feeling, you might feel like, man, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to move home, or I want to go home for a visit. And you might also just be complaining frequently. There's lots of things like, oh, I can't believe that people in Canada won't stop apologizing. It's so freaking annoying, right? You might have moments like that where just little things start to bother you. And then stage 3, again, we hope that you'll all get here, and this will vary for everybody in terms of how fast you go through these stages. But stage 3 is acceptance. This can happen from the 7th to the 18th month. And you might feel more culturally aware. So you can see the differences between your home culture and Canadian culture, but you can also see how these things come together. Maybe some of the things that bothered you about Canada in that stage 2, now you just accept. You know, you might have started saying sorry all the time in that example that I gave. And you might also be ready for intercultural friendships. So you're ready to meet maybe some homeborn Canadians and make friends that way, maybe people from other countries that are also immigrants to Canada. And this is the stage where you really get integrated in the new culture and it feels like a second home to you, somewhere where you can make a life. And we really hope that you get there. Tips for easing culture shock: explore the area in which you live. I know I did this when I moved to Toronto, and you know, I wasn't even coming from another country, just another city, but I would just take transit to different areas of town, spend an afternoon in a neighborhood, get a coffee or a lunch, and just kind of walk around, especially with the summer coming. It's beautiful weather, great to get outside. Watch and learn how people do things, and don't be afraid to try something new. This could be food, this could be an experience, a club, getting involved at campus, lots of great opportunities for that. Those are great ways to feel more involved and integrated. And then finally, just be patient. Just know that culture shock can happen. It probably will happen to some degree to you. And it doesn't mean that, you know, you're weak or that you don't belong here. It's just a normal process to go through, and just be patient with the steps of it. Know that with time it will get better, especially if you're able to access the resources here on campus for help, get involved in the community, and try a few new things. So just to reiterate, it's normal to experience culture shock. Be aware of where you are in the process. Maybe think about those 3 steps, like, oh, I'm in the honeymoon phase, I'm so excited, but just knowing next that maybe you'll feel a little bit worse about it. And then, of course, you can always seek help from friends, family, faculty. The instructors are here to help you, the staff is here to help you, and student services, of course. Contact student services at sestarcollege.com for any help with mental health. Thank you for listening. Sorry if I went a little long, and we look forward to seeing you soon. I'm going to pass things back to Shauna, who's going to conclude the day.
Thank you very much, Meg. And sorry to rush everyone out. I'd like to first off thank all of our speakers for coming today. This was an awesome session, a little bit long. Sorry about that. We'll be sharing the recording with you if you want to watch it again when you're ready to travel to Canada, which is probably when this will be the most important for you to watch. Also note that both Melissa's and Peter's contact information can be found on the Moodle department pages, and those are the links at the top of the Moodle page. If you are in the FSQT program, as I mentioned, your program orientation will begin now. I'll jump into that room as soon as I wrap up here. You would have received an email from me yesterday with the link. So if you're not in that room, you can grab that email, or you can go to the lambtoncollege.ca website. The registration and orientation page has the same link. Lots of great topics planned for tomorrow. We look forward to seeing everyone at tomorrow's sessions at 9 o'clock and at 11 o'clock. Don't forget, we have prizes available tomorrow, so make sure that you're paying attention, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.